that it's opening the door for both of you to be open with each other, and that a lot of people don't actually have the safer sex conversation. Hi, I'm Adriel, creator of the Herpes Opportunity, which is all about positively shifting your mindset, disclosing to potential partners in a way that truly connects you, and ultimately finding the love that you want and deserve. Now you can check out the free ebook linked in the description below about having the talk. And now, onto the video. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, and the chances of him not being a carrier of HSV1, he's in the minority if he is, right? And that comes to the whole thing of like, just in general, like, I think I did a video on this a while back of like, because HSV in general is so common, if you happen to be someone who doesn't have HSV, it should almost be a reverse disclosure where it's like, hey, so I'm aware that most of the world has HSV. I'm actually part of the minority who for some reason I never got it, and I would rather not get it. So, right, I mean, that's part of the, that everyone has a responsibility of like, where are we at with risk tolerance in STDs in general? And that's just part of the whole safer sex conversation in general, right? So yeah, it's a win-win to talk about this stuff, because also another thing that happens a lot with people with herpes is they don't realize that the other person might have something that they would rather not have too. So if you open the conversation and you're like, hey, this isn't really a big deal, but I wanted to share it with you. The possibility of you getting this is very low. Let me give you some stats. When's the last time you got tested? And he's like, oh, well, actually, I just got tested and I have HIV, and you're like, oh, well, I'm glad that we had this conversation, right? Like that it's opening the door for both of you to be open with each other, and that a lot of people don't actually have the safer sex conversation, right? So you're opening the door and making it safe to just have like a real conversation. Well, here's the bigger picture here. And by the way, this is like the number one thing that most kind of in my first sessions with people, this is the number one thing that comes up, right? It's just like, why is this okay? Like, why is this called cold sores, but that's called herpes? And it's like, but they're both herpes, right? So it's like a branding thing, it's like oral herpes versus genital herpes, as if they're completely different things just because they're on a different part of the body. It just goes to show how stigmatized we are around sex and sexuality, that we still live in a culture that is like, sex is naughty. If you have sex, especially out of wedlock, or if you have sex and you enjoy it, you're gonna, my God, we still live in such a puritanical society, right? So the question becomes, and this is where it's like, what is our responsibility? As on one side of it, it's like, yeah, okay, that's totally unfair. I'm going to buck that. I'm not even going to talk about it. On the other side, and this is where I land, is we happen to be in a society that does have this double standard. What's the change that I can be, that I want to see in the world? Well, part of that responsibility is to just be like, I'm going to talk about this because for some reason there's this huge stigma about it, but it's not a big deal to me. So I'm going to disclose, and I'm going to carry that frequency of, this isn't as big a deal as it seems to be, and it shouldn't be. And that's part of the disclosure, is just like, hey, I'm a human being. I had sex. Whoops, I got an STD. So what about it? Like that is part of the change that we want to see in the world, as opposed to, well, that's not fair that like this is a cold sore and I'm not even going to play that game. It's like, but that's the culture we live in. And that's kind of the yardstick that people are going to, like, unfortunately hold us to, that double standard. And how do we break that double standard, but to speak to it and like the injustice of it in a way, you know what I mean? It's like anything in our culture that is just like BS. The only way that it has started to shift is people standing up and being like, this is kind of whack, isn't it? right? Any ism in our society, you know, like racism, sexism, like any ism, it's just like, really? Women aren't equal to men? Really? Black, white skin, whatever skin color? Really? So this is just another one of those isms that it's just like, all right, we happen to be in that paradigm and we're going to speak to it and just change it from the inside out, you know? Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, people are way more accepting than you might think. That it's ironic because I think part of the stigma cuts both ways. You're thinking in terms of, well, the stigma is out there. It's going to be hard and a tall order to share this with someone and then like expect them to accept it. But that's actually part of the stigma that you're believing that, right? Like, because I cannot tell you how many people are in your we're in your shoes right now, and then like they'll disclose, and then it's like, oh my gosh, what was the big monster there? Like, it actually brought us closer together. It brought great trust between us. It was like a bonding experience. We were like tearing up together and holding each other, and like I thought I was going to get rejected, right? Like, not to expect that that's what's going to happen, but like that there's way more, especially when you already trust this person with your vulnerability and clearly there's already a connection there. That means something. That's not just two strangers walking up to each other on the street and you saying, "Hey, I have herpes," and they're like, "Ew." There's actual, like, there's connection and trust there, and don't underestimate that, right? Also, I mean, people who, you know, like when you do disclose and you do it from this place of care for the other person and integrity and all of that, they tend to see that way more than they see, oh my God, herpes. Well, I hope you got a lot out of that video. And if you did, please let me know. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and keep an eye out for more videos just like this.